Hello there, everyone. I'm Gaylen Morse, and welcome to Journey to Recovery. We appreciate having you along today. This podcast is entitled Becoming Intentional, Part 2. On today's program, we'll talk with Dr. Hal Baumchen about setting goals and following through without being so distracted or interrupted. We'll look at key areas where you can become intentional and deliberate in your recovery program. Thanks for joining us today. Our podcast focuses on the co-occurring disorders of mental health and substance abuse. We present a wide range of thought-provoking, hopeful, and positive topics from a clinical yet practical perspective. And we provide a solid, truly integrated co-occurring disorder resource you can use in your treatment program or in your own recovery. Our host is Dr. Hal Baumchen, a licensed clinical psychologist and licensed alcohol and drug counselor. He is the executive director of Northland Counseling Services and the clinical director of North Star Regional Co-occurring Disorder Treatment Programs. He's an author, a speaker, and clinician with over 30 years of counseling experience. I'm here today with Tim Bode, Operations Director at Northland Counseling Services, and with Dr. Hal Baumchen, our host at Journey to Recovery. How you guys doing today?
We're doing well. How are you, Gaylen?
Good, thank you.
Sometimes it's hard to get through those things, isn't it, Gaylen?
Especially
you had
with
to be intentional.
Intentional. Forget the coffee you just drank.
Yeah. You did a good job as always, so thank you for being here with us today. Thank you, Tim, for coming in.
Yes, you're welcome.
It's always nice to see you guys.
Thank you.
We are talking through being intentional rather than being random or haphazard.
Yeah, so we're going to continue our discussion today that we started last week about being intentional in your recovery. Dr. Hal, what does it mean to be intentional?
To be intentional means to be meaningfully focused on key areas of living. Your actions are purposeful, not random, and they're not chaotic. You are deliberate in the way you live and what you do. Your desires, wishes, and dreams have significance and meaning for yourself and for others, and you pursue them with this diligent, planned attitude and disposition.
So pursuing them with deliberation and forethought?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you understand that sacrifices will be made, and you're able to ignore interruptions and delay gratification in order to accomplish your goals.
My grandmother always said, would you like dessert? We're having pie for dessert. I'm like, oh, that'd be great. Eat your peas before you get the pie. So my thing is peas before pie, and that's being intentional and planned and deliberate about how you're going to get something, but you're going to do the difficult thing before you get the thing that you desire. So you're going to have to delay gratification in order to get to the goal.
Right.
On our last podcast, we mentioned several key areas to focus our attention on. They included family, relationships, spending and your finances, developing a sober network, taking care of your mental health, and transportation. Now, these are all important areas as you establish your recovery program, and we're encouraging people to think these things through in advance. They can be improved with forethought and with planning.
And we have some more areas we'd like to cover today. The first one we're going to talk about is developing relationships.
Similar to working with your family,
Right.
High-quality relationships rarely appear out of the blue or develop by chance.
Yeah, you must be intentional in order to find and maintain friendships, and this is maybe especially true in recovery.
Absolutely, because if you default to the old thing, you're going to end up hanging out with people that use, so you're going to have to be real intentional here. And you might ask yourself, are there people in your life with whom you need to sever those relationships? Is there anyone you would like to reconnect with who would be strong, loyal, affirming of your recovery? Are you willing to make some phone calls, put aside some differences, forgive offenses, and rebuild trust in a relationship that maybe you've damaged, and make substantial efforts to gain new friends or restore old relationships?
Another area that we want to talk about today is housing. So think about the efforts that you could make to create a home for yourself and for those that you feel responsible to take care of.
Where are you going to live? And sometimes that's an easy thing for me and you. We know we're going to go home tonight. But for somebody coming out of recovery, maybe they've been in a treatment program, Maybe before they entered the treatment program, they were coming from the jail. Maybe before they were in jail, they were really living on the street, couch surfing. And now they have to think through, where am I going to live? Is there an aftercare program or sober housing? Or can I hook up with a roommate? But I've got to be careful about this. What can I do to get a home or rent a place? And maybe I want to look ahead for 6 months or a year and find a plan that I can live with. Who will you live with? What furnishings or maintenance concerns are you going to have?
Yeah, so think about over the next year, let's say, what you can do to find and maintain affordable, safe housing. And as we've said, if you're in recovery, that can sometimes be a real challenge.
Absolutely. People struggle with this more than you would think. The finances, the job thing, and then where am I going to live? And you got to get those solved. And we want you to be intentional about that, to think that through. And if you can think it through early, that's going to be better.
And as we've talked about in the previous area, you don't necessarily want to go back to where you were living if that was a place where other people were using. That would be a bad situation.
Right. That might cue you or trigger you to use again. You're going to want to avoid that. You want to avoid the people that were there and avoid that place, because the place itself might be a trigger for you.
Right.
Let me break in here, guys, and direct our listeners to some of the resources that are available on our website. We're always adding new materials, such as podcasts, blog articles, lessons you can use in your treatment center. Also check out Dr. Hal's Journeys Co-occurring Disorder Lifestyle Resource Manual. This manual is packed with clinical wisdom gathered over 30 years. It's a full-color and easy-to-read resource containing hundreds of treatment ideas and strategies that work. You'll find this resource thought-provoking, hopeful, and positive. Here's Tim to tell you how you can get your copy.
Thanks, Gaylen. To get your copy of the Journeys Manual, visit journeytorecovery.com and click on the co-occurring workbook link in the top menu. The next area that we'll talk about today is hobbies and interests. So as you grow in your recovery and get stronger in your mental health, you may find an increased interest in hobbies and activities that have fallen along the wayside.
What do you like to do for hobbies, Tim?
I like to play music. I play guitar, so I like to do that as a hobby. I actually like working on house projects as a hobby. Both Joan and I, my wife and I, like to do that.
Yeah.
So
it's funny how projects seem like a burden or a chore to some people, and then other people, that's a hobby, interest, or an activity that really feels like recreation or a place to be creative. Same as your music.
yes, right.
Gaylen, what do you like?
Well, build a lot of models.
Yeah.
Haven't done as much of that the last few years, but that was
And ship models you like?
well, yeah, ship and railroad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, transportation, put it that way.
Yeah. And then you like some video games. We talked about the driving thing that you like to do.
Yes, yeah, it's simulation they call it.
Okay.
Racing simulation.
Okay,
yes.
right.
Or sim.
Yeah.
And how about you, Dr. Hal?
I like woodworking, and I have a guitar. I have a nice guitar, but I don't play it as much as I like to. And I do some writing, same as you. Like, that's work for some people, but a little bit of a recreation or a creative outlet for me as well. Mm-hmm. I played chess back in the day, but those days are gone. So you might ask yourself, what hobbies and interests are you willing to try? What happens when people are getting addicted, becoming addicted, and living in addiction for 5 or 10 years or more? Their life is shrinking in terms of these hobbies, interests, and activities. They're going less places, they're meeting less people, they're not trying new hobbies or new activities. They eating in the same old place, they eat the same old foods, and in every way, your life might feel like it's shrinking. When you go through treatment and start your recovery, we want you to kick your life back open, try new foods, go new places, meet new people, try a different AA group, read some new books, try some new recipes. So kick your life back open, including finding interests, hobbies, and activities that will really add to your enjoyment. And we want you to think through those carefully.
Right, because we certainly don't want you to go get involved in activities that could cue you or trigger you to use again.
Absolutely,
correct?
right.
So if you're in recovery, as Dr. Hal said, ask yourself what activities or interests you could pursue over the next several months that would open your life up again.
How about education, either formal or informal, in addition to hobbies and activities mentioned above?
Right. I think that's another key area that people could spend some time planning and pursuing carefully.
Right. So I think education can, contribute to your sense of accomplishment and can give you some pride and achievement and increase your self-esteem.
You could consider finishing your GED, consider going to trade school or get into college. Maybe you could enroll in an education class or a program or just learn new things online. Boy, you can look at Pinterest or a million other things on a search engine and find some very fascinating things. And I like to think that I'm always a learner. I'm interested in a million things, always trying to learn something. Yeah. It's a great way to live life, of course, but here we'd like you to be intentional about it.
You can learn, you can grow, you can expand your life, and it doesn't have to be formal. It can be formal or informal education.
Those informal opportunities are everywhere, aren't they, Gaylen?
Yes, they are.
We invite you to think through this area intentionally. You might ask yourself, what opportunities would you like to take advantage of? Maybe set a goal and then stick to it, of course. Be careful that you are pursuing a goal and not compromised in your goal by distractions or interruptions. Does that ever happen where you get, you have a good plan, I'm going to do this thing and pursue it, and that lasts about a day?
Yeah, happens to me probably more often than I'd like to admit.
Right.
I can be pretty intentional about something and plan something out, and I'm a better starter than I am a finisher too. So I at the beginning I do a really good job of following that plan, and then at some point I get distracted by something else.
I really think it happens in recovery, where people have great intentions at first and have good motivation toward pursuing their goals at first, but then that level of motivation kind of gets dumbed down, and those important things fall by the wayside, and we start gravitating toward things that instant gratification and things that we enjoy and get back into old routines and bad habits. Mm-hmm. So it's a very important thing that we're talking about today. It seems like we're talking about hobbies, interests, transportation, education, taking a class. What does that matter? We're talking about running your recovery program with great intention and purpose.
Right. Another area in which you need to be intentional is managing any legal problems you have. Facing legal difficulties can certainly be overwhelming.
Everybody wishes they didn't have these things. Just wish I didn't have legal problems or something. But if you do, we want you to pursue them with great intention. Don't procrastinate. Don't put these off. Don't get yourself distracted by something else. It's tempting to put off this stressful situation or avoid it altogether, but that will end up just creating more consequences. Of course, failing to face your difficulty often merely makes it worse. Consider what you need to do to prevent future legal problems. Manage your probation or parole requirements that you have currently, and stay on top of UAs if you have to do that, or community service, and then attend your probation meetings and any upcoming court dates that you may have.
If you have any current court involvement, think about 3 action steps that are needed to comply with your present legal situation.
Right. Don't put that off. Don't delay on that. See if you can plan it out. Maybe talk to a counselor or a peer that you have, somebody in your treatment program, or somebody that's supportive of your recovery if you're having some hesitancies about pursuing this, because it's shameful, it's embarrassing, it's difficult, it's anxiety producing, but we do want you to grab a hold of that and get it done.
Another area to pursue intentionally is your physical health. Think about how you can better take care of yourself physically. Are you willing and able to exercise? Are you getting proper nutrition? Are you getting enough exercise and enough sleep? Do you need to go to the doctor?
I think some people don't go to the doctor. They've got some medical things, but they delay that. And I've heard some interesting excuses about this, like, well, I've got something really bad going on. Maybe it's cancer. You should go to the doctor, get that checked. Well, I don't want cancer, Well, the doctor's not giving you cancer. You either have it or you don't. Let's go get it checked out.
Yeah.
Or dental work that patients need as well.
Right. So many of our clients in our co-occurring disorder treatment program are also concerned about mental health. So think about what steps you can take to decrease symptoms of anxiety and depression.
Right. So follow through with counseling appointments. Maybe go back to a psychiatrist, or if you had a psychiatrist in your treatment program that you could visit with again, stay current with those appointments. Stay up on your medications. Again, we believe that the medication and counseling work better than either one alone. Medication and counseling work better than medication alone. Medication and counseling together work better than counseling alone. So take care of your mental health. You'll be glad you did, and be intentional about that as well.
Right.
A lot of the things I hear you saying point to attitude. To get the most out of your treatment and have the best chance of ongoing, long-lasting recovery, you have to consider how to create a positive attitude.
Right. So think about some simple things you can do to remain upbeat, positive, and optimistic.
Consider being around positive people. Why would that help, Tim? What do you think?
Well, if you're having trouble in your recovery, positive people are going to help lift you up and encourage you rather than bring you down and drive you the other way.
Some of those pessimistic people that we hang out with, but they're going to drag you down. We have to be very careful about that. So get around positive people that believe in you and support your recovery.
Yeah, who tell you things like you can do it, you're going to make it, rather than you're not going to make it, you're just going to fail again. You don't want to hear those things.
And use positive self-talk to challenge your old pessimistic and negative scripts. Many people talk like this to themselves very negatively. I can't do it. I'm not going to make it. This is too hard for me. This is stupid. These things don't work for me. Positive thinking's not going to work or help. But those things, we got to kick to the wayside. Kick those to the curb. Start talking to yourself positively. And I always think that you're headed in the direction that you are thinking about and that you're speaking about. So speak to yourself in a kind of a positive way. I can do all things through Christ, or I'm making good progress, or something like that. So find some positive statements you can rehearse.
So as we've been saying all along, it's a good idea to write down some action steps, or set some goals for yourself, list some things. So we encourage you to list 2 or 3 positive attitude adjustments that you're willing to make.
Right. And hang out with positive people. We talked today about managing legal problems. We looked at educating yourself either formally or informally. We talked today about pursuing hobbies, interests, and activities. And we even included being careful and intentional about where you're going to live, some housing concerns that you may have. And then the first thing that we talked about today was developing solid relationships. So all of those areas we included because we want you to plan your life and your recovery with great intention, great purpose. We have some quotes today, I think.
We do. There's some really good quotes about being intentional that we want to share with you.
One of the things that I think kind of covers everything we've talked about. Michael Hyatt, in his book, Living Forward, A Proven Plan to Stop Drifting and Get the Life You Want, says that if you don't have a plan for your life, someone else does.
That's so true, isn't it?
That's true.
And theirs probably isn't as good as it should be.
Right. You'd be better off planning your own life rather than letting somebody else do it for you.
Nope.
A quote that I like from J.P. Morgan is, the first step towards getting somewhere is to decide you're not going to stay where you are.
Right. I'm not happy with where I am. I'm going to make a plan and pursue it.
Right.
To accomplish my goals. Michael Hyatt said anything worthwhile is opposed. So somebody is going to be opposed to your good intentions, but roll up your sleeves and get it done anyway. And find people in your life who do support rather than to get shut down by somebody who doesn't.
Yes.
That book, Living Forward, is from Michael Hyatt, is full of really good quotes. One I like is, the more belief and confidence we feel toward achieving our goal, the higher the probability of our making the changes required to hit our target.
Right. Yep. That's a good one, isn't it? Because It's not just wishful thinking here, it's making those changes that are going to help us hit the goal.
Right.
That's great. And lastly, success is a process, not an event. That's a great one because sometimes I think we want everything to unfold all at once and to hit the target and feel great about it. But maybe we're getting better over time. Maybe we're pursuing and making progress rather than necessarily just celebrating only when we attain the great prize.
Right. And I think if we think about it as an event, then it's like, okay, I'm done with that. I've achieved that goal, but it needs to be an ongoing process.
Right.
It kind of sounds a lot like recovery is a journey.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Right. So go ahead, face the journey, roll up your sleeves, and be intentional and purposeful about what you're doing in your recovery.
And enjoy what you're accomplishing along the way.
That's right.
Well, thanks everybody for listening to today's podcast. Today we were talking about becoming intentional. We certainly hope you enjoyed it. Also, we invite you to check out resources on the web at journeytorecovery.com, where you can download other materials that help you develop skills to identify emotional problems, reduce symptoms, and prevent relapse at journeytorecovery.com. We've been visiting with author, speaker, and clinical psychologist Dr. Hal Baumchen. I'm Gaylen Morse. Thanks for listening to today's program. See you next time on Journey to Recovery. Remember, recovery is a journey. Enjoy the ride.